The Optical Consumer Complaint Service, or OCCS, is a service that aims to mediate in many types of disputes between a consumer and their optical provider. They offer guidance on responding to complaints and provide assistance to consumers about raising a complaint. They're in a great place to share some advice on how to best manage the issues that arrive, and we have the head of the organisation to discuss how to best manage complaints and what kind of complaints seem to be more prevalent now than in years past.
Hi, I'm Jenny Jones. I head the OCCS, which is the Optical Consumer Complaint Service. The service is funded by the General Optical Council, and we're there to provide complaint mediation for consumer complaints that escalate outside the practice.
The OCCS released their annual report looking back at 2022 to 23. It looks into things like how consumers felt about the eye examinations they received, prescriptions and dispenses. Interestingly, clinical complaints are down, but there's been an increase in the number of complaints about products and services.
When you look at our basic data, the number of complaints specifically relating to charges and fees has increased. It's still not up there in our sort of top 5, but looking at it, there has been a 20% increase. And I think it's definitely been a factor within the other complaints that we have seen. So we have seen some historic complaints come through where I think consumers may have felt, actually, I bought those glasses 2 years ago and I wasn't really happy with them, so I'm going to raise an issue now. And I think that's definitely driven by kind of financial pressures. I think definitely a factor we're seeing is consumers going to the refund as being the resolution. I'm not happy, I want my money back. Rather than necessarily wanting to work with the practice to resolve that. And I think, like all of us, particularly if money's tighter, unless we are absolutely satisfied, people are more inclined to probably come back and have that conversation now. Equally, we're possibly seeing practices less likely to go to a refund as being their first solution. Spend might be a bit different now, so practices are seeing less money coming in, therefore they're looking to probably protect the revenue they do have, and that can be challenging, and I think perhaps the goodwill element there becomes a little bit tighter when you're looking at a situation where the economic pressures definitely come through into practice. We've had complaints escalating through to the OCCS over £5, looking at the commercial bigger picture. Okay, we might have preserved that £150 spend there and not given the refund, but if we've spent 2 days all in all dealing with this complaint, actually how much have we lost in the more positive and constructive kind of things we could have been doing in that time.
Jenny also stresses the value in being clear about the options available to a customer, paying special attention to warranties and returns.
The consumer's really clear if they need to come back within 3 months, for example, with varifocals, that they are aware of that, and that actually then you've got some space to work with them and also with your suppliers to perhaps try to address that. I think sometimes a practice will say, well, if the consumer had gone with offer X, then we might have been able to do something. Well, it's better to have that conversation when the consumer's making the decision and placing the order than doing it when it's a complaint.
As the OCCS sees a whole range of complaints, what advice does Jenny have for managing them?
We're not comfortable dealing with conflict and confrontation, most of us, so we look to think, well, I know what's happened, I can fix this and it'll be done, I'll get it off my desk. But actually creating a bit of space, and I don't mean hours, but just time, asking some open questions so that you understand where the consumer is coming from. What is it they already know? What do you need to inform them about? What misunderstandings may they have? Because they'll have some of the story, but maybe not the full picture. But in asking those questions as well, you're showing the consumer that you want to hear them. We all want to be heard when we complain, but giving them that opportunity, hearing from them, and then being able to reflect it back to them once they've shared their perspective would just start to diffuse the situation as well. Yeah, those open questions, very much where you're asking them to then explain to me, tell me a bit more about, absolutely will give you kind of the golden nuggets of information that you need to be able to deal with it. And it's less confrontational as well. In any complaint situation, there's scope for an apology. That's not admitting we've done anything wrong, but I think opening up the dialogue, it's a human connection. So acknowledging, allowing the patient to tell you how they feel about this, to tell you what's happened, their perspective. If you've got an apology, that opens up the door for the consumer then to share what the impact has been on them. It also gives you the chance to find the way forward. What's this consumer looking for? What is it that they are going to need to put this right? And we sometimes make assumptions about what that's going to be, whereas actually if we let them talk for a bit, then they'll give us some clues, and then we can move on to explaining why it happened, what we can do to put it right, and then making sure we really stick to doing what we say we're going to do. So if we've agreed an action plan, that we own that. If something has happened in practice and there's a fear that the patient has been harmed in some way, absolutely the practice needs to speak to their indemnity insurers and just run that through. But there's still that ability to be, open and collaborative with the patient. And actually one of the most common issues that comes through to the OCCS is how the practice has handled that situation, not actually the situation itself. People accept that things happen, but it's that openness to deal with it. So actually come in and talk to us about it, come and sit down, and let's, we'll then work our way forward. The more we can do that, absolutely the better. We would really advocate looking at the positive feedback and complaints kind of alongside each other. Have we had some really great feedback from consumers? And also, has anyone heard anything, anyone worried about anything that's happened? How can we share that so we learn from it? The more we can feed into sharing, why did that happen? Is it a system issue? Can we do something about it? Is it a training issue? Or is it just actually it was one of those things? It's human nature, and how do we deal with it? That's not about naming and shaming, but it's about bringing complaints and positive feedback into the conversation, because they are both as valuable for learning opportunities as others. And obviously, if you feel somebody needs a bit more one-to-one support, then you can take it away from that and help that with some training, or there's lots of resources that you can access to just help people feel a bit more confident in that space.